Hello, my friends. This is Heavy Arms Kai, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. I have several things to show you today. Refueling mission for those unmanned rescue craft. Unfortunately, we had a Kerbal go off on his own. He was a recruit that got overzealous and raided a junkyard, grabbed several parts, and just took off to the moon. Unfortunately, we have to rescue him now. And I attempted to make a collapsible space dock. It worked semi-well on my second attempt, but I don't think we're going to be using it for anything other than just looks right now. I'll make a more solid one and actually make that our permanent base later on. But let's go ahead and get to it. Alright, here we have just a simple little unmanned refuel thing that I created real quickly. All it is really is just a bunch of fuel tanks and the drone core and some RCS to get me where I need to go. But the rendezvous wasn't really that difficult. Just took a little while. Unfortunately, the X configuration of those fuel tanks, I did not realize it, but it blocked a lot of the RCS thrust. So I was having quite a difficult time trying to get this thing to maneuver properly, and had to check a couple of times to see what was going on, and eventually realized I should have put the RCS ports in different spaces or possibly on the outsides of those X's. But I still managed to get rendezvoused rather quickly. It wasn't that big of a deal. Eventually, I got the craft in where it needed to be, which wasn't, like I said, not too big of a deal. I do enjoy using the drone cores quite a lot because you don't have to worry about wasting Kerbal lives or having enough pilots to do what you need to do. Pretty much my entire fleet is made of drone ships. There was a mod that made it to where you had to set up satellite networks to actually communicate with your drone ships, and if it was still working with this version of the Kerbal Space Program, I would probably have it installed now, and you would see a giant network of satellites all around Kerbin right now. There are several of the communications antenna that are actually stock with the game work pretty interesting with that mod. Some of them are line of sight, which means you have to point them at the other ship or at the other probes in order to get them to work. And others just do like a radius transmission, which unfortunately their transmission radius isn't quite as large as the direct line of sight ones. So when you basically build all your probe ships and your satellites, you have to make sure to have several different types of these transmitters on them. Otherwise, your network just completely fails. But here I am, like getting really close to the ship, almost got it docked. Uh, this ship was far easier to dock than some of the other ones you'll see later for the foldable station that I created, because they don't have parts that are wobbling all over the place and making it to where I have to keep readjusting, turning on and off SAS, and all that nonsense. I really like when I can make the ships rigid and not have to worry about it. Like the ships that are actually attached to this rescue craft. That's the reason I have so many attachment points, because the rigid structure makes it far easier to control everything. But yeah, here I am coming in. Almost got it. Almost got it. Really all this was prep work to make sure that the craft had enough fuel in every storage tank, enough monopropellant. It's got more than enough electricity with those gigantic solar panels I put on it. But yeah, pretty much that's all it was. And almost there. Almost there. That's about it. Yep. Nope. Wait for it. Come on. There we go. Touchdown. And now that we're docked, I can easily just go ahead and transfer all the fuel I need and empty this thing out. Pretty much just topping up the tanks, really. It's no big deal. I had to go through lots of the fuel tanks, though, and make sure that everything was good to go, and Had to check some of the tanks in the middle to make sure that I didn't miss anything. But eventually I got this topped up and took the supply ship and basically just crashed it into the moon because I didn't need it anymore. And there was no getting it back to Kerbin or saving it anyways. Another reason why I use drone cores is like that way I don't have to worry about rescuing the entire thing. I can just crash it and get rid of it and no problem. Here's our little Kerbin rookie that basically, you can tell he raided a junkyard for this. It looks like a giant flying trash can. But he was so eager to get to the moon that he launched and took off without thinking about adding return fuel, parachutes, or anything to get him back home. So yeah, now we have to rescue this guy. Thankfully, I just topped up the tanks on our rescue craft. But he will basically contact Mission Control and try and ask them to send somebody to help him out. And we're going to create a large, actually manned spaceship to send to the moon and pick him up and take him back, rather than just using our unmanned rescue craft this time. Obviously, they can't get all the way back to Kerbin. Like, they probably could. They probably have enough fuel to get there, but they wouldn't be able to land because they don't have parachutes and they wouldn't be able to survive re-entry. But, yep, let's see here. He's about to get out and realize his terrible mistake. I didn't even look at this Kerbal's name either. It's like Hindus or Hindius Kerman. You'll be able to see it in the bottom of the screen. He's so happy. I think eventually he plants a flag here thinking he's hot stuff and better than Jeb Kerman. Yeah, there's his flag. You think you're hot stuff, but you don't realize what you've done. Well, that's a little presumptuous of you, isn't it? I apologize for leaving the mouse in the way. You'll still be able to read what he says, though. And now he's realized his mistake. So now we have to go rescue him. Poor little guy. I know Kerbals like to fly, but come on, man. So here we have it's the spreadable, opening up space station thing I came up with. I really like the robotics parts pack, and it allows you to make all sorts of movable frames and deployable solar panels and all that good stuff. It's pretty neat. But I based this design off one episode of Star Trek Enterprise where their ship was damaged and they required quite hefty repairs, so they were going to go back to Earth. But someone told them about a repair station. And the station itself, once they got to it, was too small for their ship, basically. So what ended up happening was they saw the whole station actually reconfigured and opened up in order to fit their ship. And I thought it was the coolest looking design that I'd ever seen for a space station. So I tried to replicate that in Kerbal Space Program. Fortunately, it did not go so well because these parts are actually very, very, well, let's just say they're kind of spongy and they move a little too much. They're not as rigid as I would like them to be. But yeah, the way I'm setting these parts up is kind of in a long array, and because of that and the flexibility of it, when I tried to curl the parts in to a circle, they flexed way too much, and pretty much it was catastrophic. Everything just totally messed up. Not to mention the fact that the motors for the robotics parts, they also broke pieces. You'll see that later on in the video. It just didn't turn out so well. But I'm gonna skip forward really quick and show you what happened later on. So here I have the entire truss put together. I'm just waiting to get on the light side. That way I can actually see what I'm doing. I almost broke the entire thing, smashing the launcher into the front because I could not see where I was docking it. Yeah, that launcher right there almost totally destroyed it before I even got to this point. But here I'm just checking to make sure that I hit the right motor, and I want to curl this in so that it makes a circle. And that was the way the whole design was built. Here I curled it the wrong way, so I start hitting the wrong button again, and now I'm expanding it. So I had to put that back, and you can just see how much it's bending and flexing, and that was pretty much the death of this thing. And I think of it, yep, there we go. I eventually found the control, and this way obviously wouldn't have worked because the launcher itself was in the way, and I designed it for the solar panels to be out. And you can see there's just way too much bending and flexing, and I think something actually broke here that I did not realize, but I was trying to wait for all this flexing to stop, and I think all the SAS systems that were in the drone cores were actually not making things good either. But I thought things would probably be safe here, so I went ahead and was tapping it a little bit more, and it looked awesome. And it would have been fantastic if this thing had survived and worked properly. I just really wish I could find a way to get all this bendy, flexy stuff under control. I'm getting close here. And at this point I thought, man, it would have been nice if I had 6 more of these things, because I could have made like a gigantic version of this. Which, no, I'm glad I didn't, because the entire docking of these 6 took an hour, and oh my god. But it looks pretty good right here. I just got to get it closed. And these docking ports, like, I have to give them credit, man. For what I put them through, they held up pretty well. I also noticed too that the turning motors off to the right, they seem to be turned a little too much, and I wasn't sure if that was just because it was bending and flexing. And eventually I got it good to go, and the back circle looks a lot more circular than this front side, and I couldn't understand what was wrong. I believe I actually went ahead and checked some of the motors to see what rotation they were at, because like with a lot of your designs, all you got to do, if you're doing it in like 6 or 3, just divide the angle by however, divide 360 by however many parts you're going to have, and usually you can find the angle. So 360 divided by 6, that's 60 degrees. So all these angles should have been on a total of 60 degrees. And because there's 2 of those on each one, I think that's 30 degrees for both of them. And I was over on a couple of these and went up to like 36, I believe. So yeah, obviously it wasn't set up exactly right, but I was just trying to get all of those docking ports to actually align properly. So here I'm trying to just see if I can move everything out a little bit, and boom, just parts start going everywhere. And I had no clue what was going wrong. And here you can see one of my beams came off, and in the background you can actually see another one that came off. So yeah, at this point I was really frustrated because it'd been an hour that it took me to set this up. And yeah, I think eventually I just go ahead and just say screw it and hit the expand button, just to see what happens. Oh yeah, I think here I'm trying to see if why I don't have control, and it turns out the parts that separated became a secondary ship, so I was clicking on the wrong ship. And yeah, here's where I just go for it and say screw it and expand everything out. And it's totally dead. But you can tell that that thing would have looked amazing if I could have gotten it opened up properly with all 6 of those. Poor thing. Here we have my redesigned one. I decided to go with only 4 instead of the 6, and I also thought it would be safer if instead of just taking all those off and trying to rendezvous all of them and then fly the launcher ship and rendezvous that one, that it would be a smarter idea to take and try and link everything up before I undock everything. So my design is made basically to where I can do that. That's why I've got these things rotating right away. It worked way better, but I still think that the way the rotators, the ones I'm doing right now, work, if I could only get those to where they would rotate freely after they were linked up, then everything would be okay. Unfortunately, I could not do that. It like you there is a free rotating version of that part, but the problem with that is you have no control with it to where I wouldn't be able to rotate them into position, lock them, and then have everything good to go once all the parts were together. And right now, oh yeah, I forgot. I had to undock all of these to make sure that the connectors wouldn't interfere with all these parts, because you can see that that top one right there is connected by some of the struts, and if I was trying to move any of these parts, those struts would make it to where everything would wig out and freak out and break. But so basically I have to go through and undock these and redock all of them in order to get things jiving properly. This process did not take as long as that other one. That's the main reason for the redesign. I did not want to go through an entire hour of undocking these things and then trying to get everything to meet up properly and worrying about 3 ships floating there. This was a far safer way to do it, because I only had 2 ships to worry about, and all I had to do was just undock, move them out, and then move them back in, and everything was good to go. So yeah, this you really learn from multiple launches in Kerbal Space Program, and yeah, granted, this was just it was more of a build just for interesting purposes, but I still enjoyed it. I still had fun. And what's the point in playing video games if you're not having fun? Well, I don't know. Sometimes I do torture myself in Kerbal Space Program quite a lot with wasted launches. Yeah, here I am coming in with the second one. And it's kind of funny, every time this thing rotated, it made me think of the chamber of a revolver or something like that. I was loading the next shot. Oh, that gives me a cool idea. I could always make a giant space station that launches a spacecraft like a revolver. That's an interesting concept. If you want me to do that, let me know. Yeah, here I am on the last one. I think this is the last one. And as soon as I get this redocked, man, it is so much easier to do it this way than making that giant array. That thing was just, ugh. Any Kerbal would have told me I'm an idiot for that. And they do crazy stuff. Yeah, so now we got them all moved. And it was just a simple process of moving the arms out. And they pretty much locked up, and I was good to go. I had to do it really slowly, though. I was a little nervous. After spending all the time on the redesign and getting this up into orbit, I wanted to make sure that this worked. But yeah, there we go. Pretty much everything's locked in. It's got a little bit of a wobble, but that was it. And it takes me a little while to get the launcher ship out of there, but I eventually got that docked to the side, and I'm I end up basically docking it on the dark side of the planet, but I'm not going to show you all that because you can't really see anything. And here we are, all docked and good to go. I I thought this was a better design, or it basically worked way better than the other one, and it still looks pretty cool regardless. So I was thinking, okay, check everything, make sure everything's at the right angle, and let's see if we can expand this. And things seem to be going good. I was trying to do it nice and slow. I didn't want to break anything like I did last time. But I end up hitting the wrong button here in a little bit and freak the hell out because I didn't know what was going on. Those green buttons on the menu basically make the all your motors just keep turning until you tell them to stop. And if there was a way to disable that, that would be great. Unfortunately, there's not. So yeah, I end up almost breaking the thing. Yep, see right there, I hit the button and I'm like, oh my god, what's going on? And quickly stop it because, and right there I thought, oh, catastrophic failure. There's no way I'm recovering that. That's just a total mess up. And was really upset, but managed to find out that as long as I bring them all back in and don't go too fast, all of those little docking ports came right back into place. And thank goodness for that. Yeah, right at this point, I'm about to just give up on it and crash land this thing because I still have enough fuel in the in the transport to basically just annihilate it. I noticed that all of the motors were off by quite a bit, so I tried to get them all in line. That way, when I moved all of them, they wouldn't all be off from each other. And I'm sure that was just from the actual like auto run motor. It probably threw them all off because these things actually use electric charge, which is one reason you need batteries and solar panels on these things. So when you have all of those drawing power at the same time, it kind of sometimes some of them slow down or freak out a little bit because they're not all getting enough power. But here we go. I've almost got it back to normal. And I'm just waiting on that one last one to try and lock back together. But thank goodness we saved it. If it wasn't for parts being able to just somehow phase through each other, that thing would have been annihilated. Anyways, I hope you liked this video. Let me know what you want me to do in the future. We will be saving that Kerbal from the surface. I'll finally be able to use one of those rescue craft and see how well the design actually works. I think they're going to work out pretty good for us. But yeah, till next time, guys. Give me a thumbs up and leave a comment on anything you might want me to do in the future. And maybe share this video with somebody you think might enjoy it. Well, take it easy, guys. Thanks.